Average children's readership varies significantly by age and reading frequency, with older children reading fewer books for pleasure, and a majority of 9-year-olds reading almost daily in 2020 compared to only 16% who never or hardly ever read for fun. Frequent readers ages 6 to 11 read roughly 43 books per year, while infrequent readers read significantly fewer, around 21 books. The National Assessment of Educational Progress shows a decline in the percentage of 9 and 13-year-olds reading for fun almost daily since 2012. Hello and welcome to the Pop Culture Basement Podcast. My name is Mike Jamison, and with me tonight is the most special guest I have ever had on the show, my daughter, Scarlett Jamison. Scarlett, how are you tonight?
I'm very good. Thanks for asking.
And she's trying not to giggle and laugh, right?
Yes.
Why? Why are you laughing? How come?
Because it's funny to hear you. And I'm excited to be on the podcast.
It's funny to hear me do the introduction. Yeah, I am kind of corny, aren't I?
No?
No.
No.
Am I preppy?
No.
I'm trying to learn all the cool kids words. Am I slaying right now?
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. Tonight on the Pop Culture Basement Podcast, we are going to be talking about reading. We're going to be talking about the book Bridge to Terabithia, but we're also going to be talking about a love for reading that Scarlett and I share. Wouldn't you say that we share a love for reading?
Yes.
And I think this is the first year that don't you think that you've really gotten into reading?
Yes.
Do you think it's probably your main hobby?
One of.
And before we even go on, do you want to tell the audience how old you are?
Yes.
How old are you?
I'm 11 years old, and I'm going into 6th grade, and today was my first day of school.
That's right. Today was her first day of 6th grade, her first day of middle school. It was the first day of high school for your brother, but we don't care about him tonight because he's not on the podcast. He's already done a podcast, not this one, but another one a long time ago. So we don't care about him, right?
I love him.
Well, that was very nice. But you know what? I have a question that I ask all my first-time guests, so I need to ask you this question. Growing up, I call this podcast Pop Culture Basement Podcast because when I was a kid, I used to watch a lot of movies down in my basement or read or watch TV shows or play video games down in my basement. Do you have any special places in your house, which is our house, that you go to read or to consume pop culture? Like read or just have an alone time to do things?
My bed with my cats.
Is your bedroom your favorite place to read?
One of, or the sunroom.
Why would the sunroom be one of your favorites?
Because I like seeing the sun coming in on me while I'm reading, and it makes it peaceful.
And you also like to, usually you'll watch TV out in the sunroom, especially with mom, right?
Mm-hmm. And I'll watch it with you down here.
Yeah, you'll come down in the basement. What do we watch together?
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That's right. We are on season 4. We're halfway through season 4, so we're halfway through the series. It's going to be tough now with school. It's going to be tougher to watch it, but we'll finish it. We'll get there.
Yes.
And then we have to watch Angel, right?
Yeah.
So tonight, I want to talk about reading and our shared love for reading. And I wanted to talk specifically about the book Bridge to Terabithia because it was a book that I read going into 4th grade. And this summer, you had a reading list, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. And I think you finished your reading list pretty fast, didn't you?
Yeah, and I did more that I got more books at Barnes & Noble's when I went with Daddy.
Yes, we did have a father-daughter day together, and you wanted to go to Barnes & Noble and spend time at Barnes & Noble, which I was up for because I was a little nervous that you were going to say you wanted to go to Sephora, and that would have been tough to go to Sephora. I don't know if I would have had a really good time if we went. I would have taken you, though. But going to Barnes & Noble was fun, and we looked for books, and we bought a couple books.
I bought 3 books.
And you read them all pretty fast.
I read most of them on our vacation to Europe.
That's right. You read them on the plane and then when you were there.
Yeah, and on the plane back.
Yep. But when you told me that you had a summer reading list, I told you that one of my favorite books growing up was Bridge to Terabithia, and I told you I wanted you to read it. So I wanted to talk about it a little bit. Bridge to Terabithia is written by Catherine Patterson. It came out in 1977. So even when I read it in 1984, it had been out for 7 years already. So did it feel like an older book when you read it?
A little bit, just by like how they wrote it and the words that they were using in the vocabulary.
But when I suggested that you should read the book, did you just do it because I said you should read it, or did you look at it and think it was a book that would interest you?
I read the back and I just read a couple of like the first pages and turned to a random page, and I knew that it was a book that I wanted to read and I would enjoy reading, and it was definitely a page turner, like you never wanted to put it down.
Now, would you say that out of all, how many books do you think you read this summer?
At least probably 11.
Wow. So out of the 11 books that you read, where do you think Bridge to Terabithia was out of the 11?
Top 3.
So can you remember what were some of the other books that you read this summer?
I read all 3 of the books this summer. I Turned Pretty, which is the TV show I'm watching with my mommy right now. And I've also read something by Judy Blume, but I forget what it was called. And I read something called It's Not Me, It's You, which was one of my favorites. Probably my top favorite, if not Bridge to Terabithia, would be The Island, because I really like horror books and it was just really fun to read and it stood out to me. One thing that was noted was that I read something called The Trumpet of the Swan, and it was also kind of like an older book, and so I thought it was cool to read both of those and kind of compare them. Bridge to Terabithia won, but I really liked both of the older books a lot more than I thought I would, and they ranked higher. So even though they were older, I still liked them as much and maybe even more.
Was the Trumpet of the Swan book, did Mom give you that?
Yeah, I was in her office and she recommended it to me.
Was that after I recommended Bridge to Terabithia? Did she think she had to recommend a book to you after I recommended a book?
She recommended that one first, I think, because
Oh,
it was in the school year, but then in the summer you recommended that to me
okay.
Or-
But you read The Trumpet of the Swan during the summer.
during the school year.
Oh, okay. So you read that during
No,
the school
sorry.
year.
During the summer.
Okay, during the summer. That's okay.
And I read, I think, Trumpet Up the Swan in about 2 days probably, and then Bridge to Terabithia in like 2 days. Where I finished it on like the plane there. I started and finished it, and for the summer I Turned Pretty, I got that from Barnes & Noble's, not our daddy-daughter date, but when I went with the whole family, and I finished that in a day. I started reading it in my bed, and I just couldn't stop.
So a little bit of a backstory. Do a lot of your friends enjoy reading, do you think? Or are you one of the only ones? Like we said, you're going into 6th grade now. And I feel like, and I'm not saying this behind his back, I know you know, and I know that your brother doesn't really like to read. He'll read comic books and he'll read graphic novels, but he is
He
not a
won't
big
choose to
reader,
read.
and he won't choose to read. It's kind of like pulling teeth to try to get him. For him going into high school, they wanted him to read 3 books this summer, and he read 1, and it was The Hobbit, and I had to convince him to read that one. It's a very good book, and he said he enjoyed it, but it also took him about a month to read it because he did it in about 5-page increments. So, out of your friends, or out of your class, but out of your friends especially, do you think you're one of the only ones who reads because they enjoy it and they don't just have to do it for school? Or do you think more of your friends read just because they want to and they have fun and it's a hobby for them?
I think that I'm one of the only ones, just because we're getting older and into that age, but I have a neighbor also who really likes to read, I think, but she doesn't read her books in a day. She'll like put it down after 15 minutes, but she likes to read, but like I don't know if anyone will read a book in like 2 days like sometimes I do. And I think that I'm one of the only ones who really enjoys to read at my age, because it's just that type of age.
And it's our neighbor. We don't want to say her name because we don't know if she wants her name said on a podcast. But does she read the? Is it the dragon books? Is it the Wings of Fire? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, she also likes the Harry Potter books, which I enjoyed also. I also like the movies, but I think most of the time movies are worse than the books. The books are better.
Yeah, we'll talk about that with Bridge to Terabithia because I know you watched the movie. Now, did you read the Harry Potter books?
Yes.
You read all the Harry Potter books?
Yes.
I did not even know that. Did mommy tell you to read them?
No,
Or did you read them in
my
school?
my 5th grade teacher did because her like whole theme of her classroom was Harry Potter, and so she kind of recommended it to all of us, but I really took that into account and started reading them.
Well, the podcast listeners can see how good of a parent I am because I didn't even realize that you read all the Harry Potter books. So that's pretty terrible. I don't even know what you're reading. You could be reading horrible things and I wouldn't even know because I didn't even know you read Harry Potter. I knew we'd watched the movies, but I didn't know we had watched that you had read the Harry Potter books. Did you enjoy the Harry Potter books? Now I'm interested because I didn't know you read them.
So, I read them in the beginning of 5th grade. So, and then that kind of pushed me. Those were long books.
Mhm.
So that kind of pushed me to read more. So like I don't remember them that much, but I do remember I liked them, but like for me, a lot of the parts were not page turners. Like I would want to read the book, but I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to read this book. I need to go read it right now. But I thought that they were pretty good books and better than the movies.
Yeah, a lot of times the books are better than the movies. There's not many cases in my experience, my long experience, because you know I'm really, really old, that the movies are better than the books. There's a couple, there's some. I think that what you said was very true. They're very long books, but I also think that they're a good bridge to making you read more adult type of books because I do think going and going shopping with you at Barnes and Noble, it's not like you're just looking in the young adult, which is fine. The young adult books are great, and whatever gets people to read, I will always get behind. I always tell people that when I was young, your nana and pop liked that I read comic books because I would ask them questions about words or concepts that I learned in there, and that led me to read more things. I would never stop you if you wanted to read just a young adult novel because I'm glad that you're reading it all. But I think that you do read more mature types of books. And when I was a kid, I remember a story when I was in 5th grade, I was reading a book that I borrowed from Pop, and it was like a spy novel by an author called John le Carre. And there's old people who listen to this podcast, so they'll know who that is. And we had a substitute teacher in 5th grade who took the book away from me because she thought it was too mature for me to be reading. And I don't know if Nana was teaching at the school then because she was a kindergarten teacher. I don't think she was, but I'm sure the teacher told her that she took the book away. And Nana went to the teacher and said, "Don't ever take books away from my son. I want him to read, and it helps him to become more intelligent." She probably said it in a little bit harsher words than that, but she basically told the teacher, "Don't ever do that to my son. I know what he's reading, and I know he's mature enough to read that." And that's what I mean with you. Any kind of books that lead you into more mature types of concepts, I trust that you'd be able to handle that. And I think it helps you learn and helps open your imagination and your growth. So I would never deny you reading something, just as long as you told me that it was okay, that you felt okay to read it.
I didn't know that story until you just told me that, but not just about books, but that proves that your parents were really great and they definitely leaned off on you because you're a really great parent.
Well, I'll give you the $5 that I told you I would give you later for talking, for saying I'm a good parent.
But I think that if like you were definitely mature enough and like she shouldn't have just taken that away right away because that's not fair for you. And I think that if she could tell that you were being mature enough, you weren't like making harsh faces, you weren't being scared of it, then she shouldn't have took it away from you.
Yeah, I mean, well, I also went to Catholic school in the 1980s, so it was a little bit different back then. It was a little bit more constraining than it is nowadays. So I'm sure they were very afraid that I was going to get very, very bad ideas from, and I can't, and to tell you the honest truth, I can't even remember what the book was about. So it didn't have that much of effect on me. But growing up, I don't remember a time that I didn't like to read. I started out reading comic books when I was really young. And then in grade school, I always liked when we got to go to the library because I always liked to be able to pick out books. And then when I used to go to the mall with my nana and your nana, who's my mom, I used to go to the bookstore and stay in the bookstore while they went and shopped. And my nana would usually buy me a book whenever they would come back because that's what nanas do. They buy you stuff because they love you. So I have always enjoyed reading just like you since I was really, really young. So when I had kids, hoped that both of them would be really into reading. And I hoped both, but then when I saw that Xander probably wasn't going to be my reader, I was so glad that you became my reader because now I have somebody to share it with. Reading and Buffy.
For my school, in 4th grade, well, going into 5th grade, they took away library, which I was really sad about because we only got to go a couple times a month, especially with my 5th grade teacher. We went one time a month sometimes, which I didn't think was great, but my library teacher, she's really kind. So she let me be a helper in 4th grade and 5th grade. And I also think that helped encourage me reading more and really just to like read more and think about reading.
So when you say they took away library, does that mean before your last year in grade school, did you go once a week to library and then they stopped doing that? Or explain again, as a parent, I probably should know this. That's why we have mom. She knows all this stuff. You have me to podcast and watch Buffy with. You have mom to take care of all the actual important stuff. But did they take it away that you didn't get to go once a week, or how exactly did it change from how it was before?
We have a 4 special cycle, and library was one of those specials in 4th grade that we would go to in that 4 special cycle. Then they took that away, and the teachers could sign up whenever they wanted, and they replaced library with design lab. And my teacher, she didn't take us that much because she said she had enough books in her classroom, but I thought she didn't have that many genres, and I wanted some harder books that they had in the library only. So I thought that it was kind of unfair because sometimes we didn't even have time to go in the morning, but they just took it away from that 4 special cycle.
And then, so you said that you used to help out with, because the librarian at your school is very, very good. She was always very, very nice to both your brother and to you. And she's a very good librarian. And your school, I know they redesigned it, right? Didn't
Yeah.
it get redesigned?
Yes.
But you actually have a really good school library. And your brother, we did this for him too, but especially with you, whenever we would go for parent teacher conferences, you can go to the library and buy a book for the kids before or after you go and talk to their teacher. And mom and I would always go in there. And I'm not going to lie, I used to like to go in there to see what books were in your library. I would kind of walk around and look and see if they had the same type of books that I had when I used to go to the school library in grade school. And we used to always get you a book to read. You would always give us a list. You especially, Xander wouldn't give us a list, but you would give us a list of the books. We used to have the Scholastic reading. Did you have you still have that, right?
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't? Why didn't you like them?
So basically, they would have open-ended questions at the end of them. No, it would be like work for us. It wouldn't be like a reading. But so our teacher would say, you can read the whole packet at the end if you would wish to, and like you're finished your work. So I wouldn't want to rush through my work, but if I had extra time, I would always read it, and I would like to read them. But they said that as work, not fun reading time for us.
We had something called Scholastic Book Club. I think that's what it was called. Scholastic Book Club, Scholastic Book Fair. And it was back when I was in grade school. We didn't have computers or we didn't have laptops. So we would get, it was almost like a newsletter. And it would have different books that you could order. And one they always had, do you know who Garfield is?
The cat?
Yes, Garfield the cat. They always had the
Yes.
collections of Garfield comic strips that you could order from there, but they would have different books. And I used to love when we would get the Scholastic Book Fair because I would always go home to Nana, to my mom, and make sure that she would order me a couple books. So that's how I would get books from school. But yeah, I would say your best bet is to become friends with whenever you're in either grade school or middle school or high school. Become friends with the school librarian. When I was in high school, the school librarian was also I joined the school newspaper and she was the coordinator of the newspaper. So I would get to hang out in the library all the time. And as you can tell from Buffy, you always want to hang out in the library because that's where all the cool stuff happens.
Yes.
But when I was in high school, I was always hanging out in the library because I was eventually the editor of the high school newspaper and she was the coordinator. So we had a very good library in high school for a city Catholic school, which means when I see your schools now, they look like colleges to me because my schools when I was growing up were one building and they were not as big as your schools.
Yeah.
But we had a very, very good school library in high school. And even when I was in grade school, I always remember having a pretty good school library. And whenever we got to go to the library, we used to get to go almost once a week. And that was always my favorite day when we got to go to the library. And where I grew up in Philadelphia, we had a library that I could walk to. So even up until high school, I used to walk to the library and take books out all the time. But I think I was one of the only, among my friends, I was one of the only ones who really read all the time. Now, Uncle CJ, my brother, he likes to read also. I don't know if he still does today. And even for me, it's harder now because I'm busier than I used to be.
He's watching Buffy with me.
That's right. I'm watching Buffy with you. I'm trying to do podcasts. Now school is starting again, so I don't get to read as much. I read a lot on my Kindle because I can read it anywhere. I just hope that your love for reading stays because I think, like I said, you're always going to learn new things. And I want you to come and be able to talk to me and Mom about things that you're not sure of because that's going to be the best way to learn. So I will always be happy that you are reading and that you're passionate about reading. So with your summer reading, what did you say was your favorite book of the whole summer? Was it the Island book?
So all of mine were a bit of different genres, so it's really hard to tell and say. It really depends what I'm in the mood for. But talking about Bridge to Terabithia, it makes me want to say that it's my favorite.
Okay, so you think Bridge to Terabithia was your favorite one?
Or The Island.
Or The Island. So before we get into Bridge to Terabithia a little bit, what was The Island about?
It was about these teenagers who were stuck on an island that they had, I guess, kind of like a deal for to go to before it actually opened. So they had special privileges because they were popular influencers. So they got on the island and creepy stuff started happening. I'm not going to try to spoil it because if you want to read it, then you should read it. It's really good. But creepy stuff just started happening. People started disappearing. People were found. People died. People were alive. It was just jam-packed with action, and also it was a page turner, which I also really like. And all I'm going to say is the end, it leaves you on a cliffhanger, and it's really suspenseful. So I wish that they were coming out with a second one, but right after that, I went downstairs, told Dad how good it was, and looked if there was a second one coming, and there's not, sadly, but I really do recommend the book.
Well, you never know. We didn't see anything, but there could be one coming. Maybe they just haven't announced it yet. So did you say, what do you think out of all the genres of books, kind of like science fiction or horror or fantasy or just regular fiction, what do you think is your favorite? Or what do you think you prefer to read the most?
Depends on the mood, but biography, romance, or horror.
What biography do you like to read?
Well, I read, this isn't really a biography, but I read Anne Frank's diary, a lot of like the pages that were in her diary, and I thought it was really interesting to see what was from their time.
So would you, because sometimes I've actually never read the Diary of Anne Frank, but some schools, I don't know if they still do. I guess we'll see with Xander being a little bit older or with you going through middle school now. Some schools do assign that. So would that be something that you would be interested in reading?
Yes.
The whole thing.
Yes.
Now, when you're in school and they assign, have they ever, do you like talking to your friends, did some of your friends not even read anything this summer?
Yeah. But they were going to say that if there was, they were asking for, oh, what did you read this summer? Then they would say a book that they've already read, which I don't think that's a good idea. Like, reading helps you learn anyways. If you really put your mind to it, even if you didn't like reading, you could read a book in a day. And you might not think about it as that, but you really could.
Yeah, maybe we probably can't read as fast as mom does because mom reads books in about 3 hours when she never has
2 minutes.
time. She never has time to read, but when she does have time to read, like on the beach, she reads them in what, about 2 hours?
Yeah, so basically, we went to the beach at the end of the summer. And like I said, me and mom have been watching the Summer I Turned Pretty TV show. And I had books from those. And I was on half of the second one. And then I'm like almost on the second one when mom just finished the first one. And then I like am finishing, it's been like 30 more minutes and I'm finally finished the second one. She starts reading the second one and mom was like, don't bring a third one, you're not gonna need it. And then she was up to my level, which was the third one. So she reads really quickly, but I like to like really focus on all the words, what they mean, and all that kind of jazz.
Yeah, I thought I could read pretty fast, but I cannot read as fast as mom. And I think I'm kind of like you. I like to enjoy it. Have you ever had a book that you didn't want to end? It was so good that you didn't want it to end?
Bridge to Terabithia and the Island.
Okay, so they might be your two favorite books.
Yeah.
Now, what did you think of the Judy Blume book? Because when I was a kid, Judy Blume is kind of known for she's actually a really good author because
Yeah.
she's written books for young girls, for young kids in general, but she's also written books that focus more on teenage readers and also she's written just regular fiction that adults can enjoy. So she has had a whole wide scope, but as a young girl, did you enjoy the book that you read? I know you said you couldn't remember the name, but would you read more of Judy Blume? I know you said you watched the Are You There? God, It's Me, Margaret movie with mom, but you didn't read the book, right?
No, because my mom didn't know if she still had it, and we figured out that she didn't, but she had the book that I actually got, so it was kind of like a coincidence.
Well, now you'll have your own. But would you read more Judy Blume stuff?
Definitely.
Now, have you ever read anything by Beverly Cleary?
I don't recognize the name, so I'm not sure, but I don't think so. The book that I read from Judy Blume, it was definitely like entertaining, and then at the end of the book, I like to read everything in the book, including everything about the author at the end of the books that she has written.
Her other previously written books.
Yeah, her other previously written books, the ones that like she just made, old ones, just to see if I want to read them, and that actually really helps me like know if I'm gonna keep reading her books. And they had a prequel to the book, and I'm definitely probably going to read that if I can find it because I really enjoyed this book, and there was one character that I was really interested in that wasn't like the main character in it. So I thought that it would be interesting if they had a book on her, and I read till the end of the book, the last page, and they were saying that there was going to be a prequel to that book in that series.
Yeah, I was the same way when I was growing up, and I'm even the same way now. When I buy a book, there's something, I don't know if you feel the same way, but there's something about a book when I first get it. And I buy a lot of books on Kindle now, like I said, just because they're a little bit easier. But when I get a paperback or a hardback, I like to read the back and see what it says. I like to read the inside of the book jacket to see if there's a summary
Yes.
or if there's reviews, and then I'll read the inside. I'll read when the book's written. I'll read to see if there is stuff in the back because, like you said, sometimes they'll have a preview for the next book by the author, or they'll have a preview for the next book in the series. So I'm the same way. I've always liked to, and with my books, I like to make sure that I don't like to drop them anywhere. I don't like them to get scuffed up or messed up or anything like that. I don't like to fold over the pages. No, you don't like that?
Today in school, they told us to like fold over the pages as one of the way to save the page in our book, and I decided to put a sticky note instead because I hate messing up books. And I just remembered what my book was called by Judy Blume. It was Just As Long as We're Together, and it was really good. The character that I wanted to learn more about, which they actually did have a book about, I think, if I remember correctly, her name was Rachel. And she was one of the main characters, but I just really wanted to know more about her history, and I asked, they demanded.
Well, Judy Blume is still alive. She's been writing for a very, very long time. The books I read by her were Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing and Super Fudge, which were a series of books. And I think she had a book after Super Fudge. I think it was called Fudge Mania, but I didn't read it. And they've made TV movies out of those, a bunch of them over the years because they were written around the time I was born, so in the early to mid 70s. But she's been around for a really, really long time. I brought up Beverly Cleary. Did you ever hear The Mouse and the Motorcycle?
Yes.
That's a book that she's written. I think Ramona the Great. Beverly Cleary, I haven't read any of her books in a long, long time. She was also somebody I read when I was in grade school, but she was very big when I was growing up and reading stuff in grade school. But the book that I gave to you to read and the book that had an effect on me was Bridge to Terabithia, which I read going into fourth grade. And the reason I read it was because my fourth grade teacher, when I was going in the fourth grade, she was the new teacher. So back then, I went to Catholic school and we mostly had old ladies and nuns who are our teachers. And she was a new teacher and she was very young. And she sent a letter to our house right before well, I think it was in the summer before fourth grade, saying that she was going to be the new fourth grade teacher and that this was the book that she wanted us to read for fourth grade. Now, I might be remembering it wrong. That's how I remember it. I don't know if she said to us that we should read it or if she gave us a list of books to read, but I know it was because of my fourth grade teacher that I read Bridge to Terabithia.
Thank you, Daddy's fourth grade teacher.
But I don't know why it was a book. Not that I don't know why, but even as a fourth grader, I knew that it affected me in a way that books before that never had. And even though it's not especially an adult type of book, it still dealt with a lot of emotions and concepts that I don't think that I had really dealt with in reading before. Now, do you feel the same way after reading it?
It definitely got deep. I wouldn't say at all, actually, quickly. It started off pretty smooth. I definitely didn't expect what happened. Like I said, I'm not spoiling it. What happened to happen. But as it went on, I did cry multiple times. I'm a crier.
You're definitely a crier.
I cried multiple times in Buffy almost every single night we watch it, and in books. So I definitely think that it got sad, and like my dad said, it dealt with emotions that I really wasn't used to yet, and really wasn't, in a way, ready for. I was ready for those emotions, but I wasn't ready for it to happen like this.
Well, if I didn't think that you were mature enough to read it, I wouldn't have suggested. But do you want to? We can give spoilers eventually because I think
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, we'll give a warning. How about that before we
Yes.
say what happens at the very end? But Bridge to Terabithia was it was released in 1977, written by Catherine Patterson. It's the winner of the Newbery Award, which when I was a kid, I would always look for that on books, when I was picking out books at the library, I'd always look to see if it was a Newbery Award winner or nominee, because that always meant it was going to be a quality book. Now, I will admit sometimes the Newbery Award winners or nominees could be a little bit boring, but most of the time they were pretty good whenever I read them.
Yeah, we always talked about those in our library. Our librarian was also really good because she wouldn't just talk about stuff from this time, stuff from the past too. She wouldn't put that stuff, put it in bag, throw it away. She would really keep it tight to her and give it to us, which I really enjoyed.
What kind of stuff did she give you recommendations?
Well, she was really good at giving us recommendations on if we told her what we needed. If we needed a science fiction book that was for 11-year-olds, the difficulty was a medium, and it was from 1977, she will get it for us. She won't give up, and she'll get it for us, whatever we need.
Was it Star Wars? Because Star Wars was science fiction and came out in 1977.
It did?
Yes,
Actually?
it did.
No, it wasn't. I just was thinking of random dates.
That's because you're my daughter. So I think through osmosis, you somehow just knew that Star Wars came out in 1977.
I actually didn't know that.
So, Bridge to Terabithia, it is about a young boy named Jess Aarons, who his greatest ambition is to be the fastest runner in 5th grade. And after practicing all summer, basically his world is turned upside down because he meets a young girl named Leslie Burke, who is new in his class. Yeah, a girl who is new in his class. And this is set in very rural Virginia, and her family is moving from the city to rural Virginia. You could tell that it's written in the mid to late 70s because her parents are very new agey post hippie type of couple, and Jess has lived in rural Virginia his whole life. His family is very blue collar. I think, is his dad a truck driver? Is that what it was? I think his dad was a truck driver. His dad gets laid off in the book.
Yes.
And he has 3 sisters? He has a younger sister, and he has 2 older sisters.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
It's set in rural Virginia, and they're in grade school, but Jess is very much, he has aspirations to be an artist. He likes to draw.
Yes.
But it's something that he kind of keeps to himself because he doesn't think that his family would approve, or he thinks maybe his sisters would make fun of him, and he doesn't want to show his friends either because he thinks they'll make fun of him, because in his world that's just not what you do. He goes out every morning, he practices running because he wants to be the fastest boy in 5th grade, but he also has to go and milk the cow every morning. And isn't that how he first sees Jess? Isn't she sitting on the fence?
Yes.
Yep. So that's the first time he meets her, because the property next door, it had been abandoned,
Yes.
and Leslie's family moves in. And it was also back then, when you're in grade school, and you could talk about this, you don't really know what's going on everywhere in the world around you. So you could just one day see the house having nobody living in it, and the next day it's like, oh, where did this family come from? And that's kind of what happens.
Where did Leslie come from?
Yeah, that's kind of, she does kind of like turn his world upside down, right? His world is very, everything's the same. Wouldn't you say that I think he kind of feels that he's stuck, and he wants to break out of the life that he's been living and that his parents have always lived, and he wants a little bit more. And he kind of has a crush on the one teacher who is the music teacher, right?
Oh yeah, that doesn't go too well.
But she's also she's almost like an adult Leslie a little bit, because she kind of opens new worlds for him also. They get to play songs in her class, and it's kind of like a ray, just like Leslie is a kind of a ray of light in the gray that is his world. His teacher is also a ray of light in his world as well. He gets to play, I think she plays Bob Dylan songs for him.
Oh yeah, that happens. One part that really stood out to me was definitely like Leslie's imagination, and kind of like what Daddy said, bringing him into a new world, bringing him into realizing things that he's never realized, imagined before. When they're going into Terabithia, I think that the first time it's cool how he can't really imagine the stuff that Leslie was saying, because if you really think about it, no one could the first time except for Leslie. As they go on and as they're getting closer friends together, Leslie's really putting into his mind, this is all happening, this is all real. And as that happens, the process, it's really cool to see how it happens, how he's getting more connected into Terabithia, how he is the king, how she is the queen, how there is animals that look really wonky in this forest. I think it's cool to see that process and just to see that in the book, not just in little words. They really explain it nicely.
Yeah, let's go back a little bit. So it's called Bridge to Terabithia, and for people who don't know, who haven't read the book, so they live right behind their property, kind of, is a creek
Yes.
and also woods that they can go in and play. And Jess has been there his whole life, so he's gone in there. But when Leslie comes, he takes her into the woods. It starts out that she beats him in the race in 5th grade. He thought he was going on the first day of school. He thought he was going to be the fastest kid in the whole class. He doesn't even think that a girl would beat him. And she joins because she doesn't know. She didn't know that he had been practicing all summer, and she joins the race and beats him, and that makes him dislike her immediately, but he's kind of curious about her. He's intrigued by her because she's something different. And Leslie obviously wants to be friends with him. She feels bad that she beats him in the race because she didn't know that he had been practicing for so long. And she tries to talk to him. They live right next to each other, so they're on the bus together. And eventually, I think Leslie kind of breaks down his willpower, and he realizes that he wants to learn more about her. And they start to hang out, basically, right? And they'll play together, and they start to go into the woods. And Leslie, like you said, has this amazing imagination, and she introduces the concept of Terabithia to Jess, that they are going to be the king and queen of this kingdom, and there are all these animals, and it's this beautiful kingdom, and it's all their imagination, but it becomes almost real to them, and it becomes an escape for Jess from his boring and gray kind of life, and Leslie, it becomes an escape from her loneliness that she's had so far, and that's the main thrust of the book, right?
Yes, I can kind of connect to this in a way. I have people, my neighbors around me, that are my age, at least around my age, and behind their house, there's a set of woods entrances behind their houses, and we have like many memories in there. If you go across the creek, there's a walkway, so we've been on there. And talking about the imagination part, we've made houses out of branches, sticks, everything that we found, and made it our memory place, something that we'll always remember, our imagination place to just think. I can connect to them a bit.
And that's the cool thing about reading too, because you can find things, like you just said, to connect to your own life and see how it parallels what's going on in your life to what you're reading about. And that's always fun to be able to discover those things. So with Terabithia, they have to swing across on a rope, correct, to get across the creek that sometimes isn't really high, but sometimes if it rains, it can get kind of rough and it can start to get high. And the book follows Jess and Leslie through the 5th grade school year. They have to deal with bullies, and they have to deal with teachers, and they have to deal with
Life.
life. They have to deal with both their families. Jess kind of is a little disappointed with his family, and he starts to go and spend more time at Leslie's house, and he helps her father, who is a lot like me, where her father can't do a lot of handyman things around the house, just like I can.
Here you can. You're a good daddy.
I'm a good daddy. I just can't build or fix anything that much. But and because they're trying to fix up the house. And
Yeah.
Leslie's mom is a writer, So she's not around that much, but you could tell that Leslie, I think, wants a little bit more attention from her mom. But she has like her parents are still pretty good. Like they love her, and I think Jess starts to see he wants to be a little bit more creative, and it's feeding into his creativity. He gets I forget, and maybe you can tell me who gives him the pencil set.
I think it was either Leslie's dad or the music teacher.
And the music teacher, I forgot because again, I'm old, was Miss Edmonds was the name of the music teacher. It might have been Miss Edmond. I think it was. That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
And she's another one. She is and he kind of has a little bit of a crush on her, but she's opening up a different world. He sees a different world that maybe he doesn't have to just do the same thing that his dad does, and he doesn't have to just wake up every morning and milk the cow and go and have a job that he's not going to be happy with. Maybe he can become an artist, and that's what his dreams are. And then because you should follow your dreams, but you're in 6th grade now. You start to develop what you want, what you think you want to be. Like you want to be a dancer and a teacher.
I want to be a rockette, which if you don't know what that is, it's a dancer in New York, but it's really hard to get in. But I do dance 6 days a week usually, and I set my mind to it. And I also want to be a teacher, because my grandma and both of my grandmas and my nana, they inspired me because they were both teachers, to like be a teacher and just always try your best and work hard. Because middle school is a big step up from elementary school. Blockers, switching classes, more homework. So I just think that like reading books is really going to help you in life, even if you might think about it as, oh my gosh, I have to read, but start reading more and you might say, I want to read this. I want to read. I want to do this.
Yeah. And with Jess, that was another thing that I think he wanted to be closer to his dad, and his dad was very quiet. I think maybe his dad was a little bit disappointed in where his life took him. And it seemed like his mom was just always very tired. She was dealing with, like I said, he had a younger sister, and he had 2 teenage sisters, so she was dealing with them all the time and and both parents just didn't seem to have a lot of time for him. Now, I don't think the author writes it that they're mean parents. I think they're just very busy and their life is very hard. And 2, I think she was trying to convey, and maybe you could tell me if you think this too, that they came from it was just because they were so set in their ways from where they were from and how they were raised, that maybe they couldn't understand Jess because he was just very different. He was way more creative, and had bigger ideas for how he wanted his life to be than either they did, or maybe they did have big ideas for how their life was going to turn out, but it didn't turn out that way, and maybe that made them sad.
I agree. And also talking about Jesse's siblings, the little sister, I forgot her name. Do you remember her name?
I don't, but were you going to say the little sister looks up to him?
Yeah, the little sister always looks up to Jesse, and sometimes it can be really annoying for Jesse, but I think Leslie always tried to also like include her in everything they were doing. And towards the end of the book, something happened with the little sister, turns her into a bigger character through her development throughout the book.
Yeah, well, let's get to the end of the book. So near the end of the book, Miss Edmonds calls Jess and says she's going to go on a day trip to Washington, and she wanted to know if he wanted to come with her. And he's really excited because, like I said, I think Jess and Leslie when you say best friends, like they're inseparable. And do you think that both of them kind of liked each other more than friends, or do you think they just liked each other as best friends?
Times in the book, I think it occurred that they liked each other just as friends and more than friends. There is signs in the book that you can tell that both of those things are happening. I just don't know if they ever really collapse together.
And they're very young too. It's a very innocent type of love I think they have for each other, where they love each other as best friends. But I think Jess loves Leslie because she brought out a side of him that he never knew existed, and I think Leslie loves Jess because she was lonely, and he even though she came up with Terabithia, he still introduced her to where they could go and let their imaginations run free.
And he, like I said earlier, he really did get into the imagination too, even if he didn't have it quite that much before. Like some people might think, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. This is weird. But Jesse played along with it and got into that, saw Leslie's point of view, what she was seeing, understood Leslie more, which I think that also helped them get closer together and have that kind of love for each other.
So, like I said, near the end of the book, Jess goes with Miss Edmonds on a day trip to Washington. And did Jess and Leslie have a little bit of a fight beforehand also?
They might have.
I think they were having a
they did.
little bit of fight. And I think Leslie was also a bit jealous because she knew that Jess liked Miss Edmonds, and he was spending time. He was going to spend time with her. So Jess goes with Miss Edmonds on a day trip to Washington. He says it's one of his best days. He enjoys being with her because he has such a crush on her, and he's getting to see the museums and getting to do things he never did. And when he gets back from Washington, he finds out that, and this is the spoiler that Scarlett was talking about, he finds out that Leslie went to Terabithia herself, and because it was raining and because the creek was so high, she was trying to swing across and fell and hit her head, and she ends up dying. And the book ends with her family moving away and her father coming and they had a dog that they kind of adopted, Jess and Leslie, and that Leslie's family took in. And and Leslie's father gives the dog tries to give the dog to Jess, but Jess tells him to keep it. So the dad has something to remember Leslie by. And as the book ends, Jess brings his little sister into Terabithia, and I'm almost choking up as I'm talking about it because I remember it, and basically introduces her into the world of fantasy. And go ahead, Scarlett, you wanted to say something.
Just like Leslie did to Jesse, and it's really sad. At the end, I think there was a little, like he was telling her that all the Terabithians were here to see someone, and she's like, who? And then he was like, for you, and he
brings her over because he builds a bridge. So instead of them having to swing across, he builds a bridge that they can walk across. And go ahead, I cut you off, but go ahead.
No, it's okay. He pronounced her as the new queen of Terabithia because he also knew that that's what Leslie would have wanted him to do, because like I said earlier, she would always try to include Jesse's little sister in all the activities, but it was really sad, and I'm almost crying saying this.
Yeah, so you said you said you never saw me cry. You just almost saw me cry right there as I described it. And this is what I mean. This book has stayed with me from when I first read it in 4th grade. And the copy I'm holding now is not it's not the copy I had when I was in 4th grade. I remember the copy I had in 4th grade was smaller. It was also a paperback, but it was a yellow cover. I've looked it up online, and I found it. I found it online. Maybe when I release the episode, I'll put that as the picture for the episode. But it has it's supposed to be Jess and Leslie. It's a young boy and a young girl on the cover, but it's a yellow cover. But as soon as I saw it, when I looked it up, I remembered it. This one I bought either right before Mom and I got married or when we got married, so almost 20 years ago, just because I found it and I wanted to read it again 20 years ago. And then I read it again a couple of years ago, and I said to Mom, I want to give it to one of you guys to read. So when I knew that you enjoyed reading, I couldn't wait till you were a little bit older so I could give this to you. But yeah, as we're talking about it, I'm almost choking up talking about it because it's a book that has always affected me. I've always thought about that because it's the themes of loneliness and friendship and depression and wanting to, and like I said, I'm old now, but you're going into 6th grade. You know how it is when maybe like you just said, your dream, and you're lucky too because I think we live in a time now where, and we live in an area where people are more open to those ideas. But like we said, where Jess was growing up, his family, that all they thought about, and not in a mean way, but maybe because that's all they really could do, was we need someone to help on the property. So you are the only boy, and we need you to do this. And he would go and do it. You saw that he would go and do it every day. But he wanted more. He wanted to be creative. He wanted, and I keep bringing up his gray world to have color in it, and not just because he would get colored pencils to color in his drawings. When Leslie came, she was that ray of light that opened up this whole new, yeah, it was an imaginary world, but it was a world of different ideas, and even her family did that for him. And it changed, I think, don't you think that it changed his life?
Definitely. Made it much better. It might seem like Leslie's the only one that has problems in some parts of the book, but I know that they're there for each other and they want to show that they are okay when the other one's not. But I think I can really connect and feel that they're both not okay, but they make them, both of them, a better person by being together, and that's how you know that that's your person.
Yeah, and they were definitely each other's person, right? And we're kind of going over the book really fast. It's not a very long book, but it's a very,
Covers
you
a
could
lot.
see why it covers a lot, and you could see why it is continuously in print since almost 50 years, since 1977. It's a great book for young adult readers. It's a great book if you're if you're just looking for a book to cry. But it's it's interesting to read as an adult. It's interesting to see your point of view as an 11-year-old compared to my point of view as a now 50-year-old, because now I associate more with the parents and see a little bit where the adult characters are coming from, whereas all those years ago, I could only see it from where the kids were coming from. So now I get to see all these perspectives, and it'll be interesting to see if you read it again when you get a little bit older
Yeah.
and get a different kind of perspective. But there's still themes and feelings that it evokes that are universal. And as I said, whenever I read it, and this is not an exaggeration, I still almost cry at the end. And I know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's how this book is. But hey, I'm just glad I don't have their parents as my parents because I love my parents to the moon and back.
Well, like I said, I don't think his parents, you saw when Leslie died and there's the whole big section that he has to go over the house,
Yes.
and and Jess's mom and dad go over,
Hmm.
and they're a little awkward because they weren't really close to Leslie's parents, but they understand that Jess was really close, and his dad talks to him
Yeah,
and tries to make him feel better. So I
really
think his
kind.
dad just, he didn't know how to express his feelings.
When they were together.
He didn't know how to express his feelings for what his son needed. And sometimes that's how it is with dads. Not like me, because I'm just so awesome that I'm.
Yep,
No.
of course. Of course.
But so we were talking about earlier, you said that with books, that the movies usually are not as good as the books. Now, I will admit, I watched the movie a long, long time ago. And I know you watched it on the plane coming back, right? Or was it going there?
Yes,
You watched it
it's
on the
plane
plane coming
coming
back from
back, yeah.
vacation. So, what did you think of the movie compared to the book?
Oh, it was not as good at all, not even close. I mean, I still did cry. I still had those moments. I still understood it. But it just didn't come to me like, like, it didn't come to me like that. It just came to me as, ah. It, I just thought that it was more entertaining reading the book, if more of a page turner, even though it was a movie. But I could have paused that movie and been fine with it. If I'm closing that book, Bridge to Terabithia, I'm gonna cry because I don't want to do it.
I feel like they tried to lean too much into the fantasy aspect, and there's a little bit of a fantasy aspect, but it's not as much as the movie. And maybe that was and I'm sure that was the hook that they wanted to get families to go, was to have the special effects and
Yeah.
have the magical type of world, because it was a time when Harry Potter was out and Lord of the Rings movies had just gotten done. But that's not really, although that's a big part of the book, it's not the biggest part of the book, I think. Like you just said, it's the heart and it's the
Heart and soul.
relationship between Jess and Leslie is really the driving force of the book, not the fantasy world. That's an offshoot of what their relationship is, but that is not the main point of the book.
But also, it just depends on the person and reader. Some people might have been like, that wasn't enough fantasy for me. So they might like the movie better and say, okay, well, I love my fantasy books. I love all fantasy. So they might have liked the movie better, but I just think it didn't come to me like, whoa. It just, the book did though. It just connected. And like my dad said, I'll remember it forever.
Well, have you read, I know we read it to you when you were little, but have you read Where the Wild Things Are? When you were little, we read it to you. I don't know if you read it yourself.
I think I read it in the library, but I don't remember it.
Because they made a movie out of Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh, I've heard of that.
And people were very excited. And it's not a bad movie. It's actually a good movie. But the book, if you remember, it's only about 10 to 15 pages. And there's only a couple sentences on each page. And they made an hour-and-a-half movie out of it. So they had to extend and add stuff to make it a full movie. And even though it's an interesting movie and I like what they did with the visuals and the ideas that they tried to introduce, it's just not great when you're trying to extend a book that's only 15 pages. And that's not what they're doing here. But like we said, I think they leaned a little too much. It's not a bad movie at all. I think they tried their best and they tried to keep the heart of the book. I just think they leaned a little too much into the fantasy aspects. But I will admit, the end where he brings his little sister in still gets to me, maybe because I'm thinking of the book. So it still got me there.
Yeah, same. I agree.
All right. So do you think before we both start to cry, we should start to finish up the podcast?
Sure.
What did you think of your first podcast experience?
It was so fun.
Would you do it again?
Yeah. Maybe you'll hear from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
When we finish it 5 years from now, because you have school.
Then I'm probably going to read the books, if you didn't know there was books that I just realized Dad had a second ago before we started the podcast.
Oh, you're going to read the comics that I have?
Sure.
So now I'm going to get you into comic books through Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Sure. You're getting me through everything from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
All right. Well, see, I have superhero and Star Wars stuff with Xander, and now I have books and Buffy with you. That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, you know what? And podcasts. That's right. I think you were a natural, and I am glad and honored that you said you would come on and do this podcast with me. And the audience can't see it, but you're giving me a big hug right now, which is very nice. But we also have to finish because it's 8:37 on a school night, and you're going to go to bed soon, right? Because you want to get
8 hours of sleep.
That's right. And we don't even tell you that. You just do it on your own. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give out my information for the podcast, and then we're going to say goodbye to the audience, okay?
I'll miss you.
Okay, well, you're not done yet. Hold on. First, I'm going to say I hope everybody enjoyed this as much as I did getting the podcast with my daughter. If you'd like to find other episodes of the podcast or just say hi to us and tell me how great my daughter was on the podcast, look for us on Twitter at Pop Culture Basement, or look for me on Twitter at thislightsaberkillsfacists. Look for me on Bluesky at Pop Culture Basement, and also This Lightsaber Kills Fascists. And drop us a line and tell us what you thought of Scarlett's podcast debut.
All his episodes are amazing. I can just tell because my dad's also a natural, so go watch them.
Well,
he did not tell me to say that, just so you know.
I didn't, because I wouldn't tell you to watch them. I tell you to listen to them, because they're not on. I'm only kidding with you. Now you're mad at me. Are you never going to come back on the show again?
No, I will, just for the fans.
Just for the fans. Yes, please. Give us feedback and let me know what you thought of this episode, so I can tell Scarlett and boost her confidence even more. Until then, I would say to everyone, go and if you're a 4th grader, if you're a teenager, if you're a 6th grader, if you're 25 years old, if you're 50 years old,
100.
if you're 100 years old, if you're Santa Claus. I think Santa Claus has read Bridge to Terabithia. But if you're any of those ages, or even if you're Santa Claus, go out there and read Bridge to Terabithia. It is a great book, and you will most likely cry, just like
Yes.
I was going to say just like I do. I really do. I don't want to make it seem like I don't. I always cry at the end of Bridge to Terabithia. It's so sad.
Gets me every time.
But until then, Scarlett, do you want to say goodbye to the audience?
Bye. Thank you for listening.
Bye. Thank you guys for listening.
Because nobody there got shot the day I read a book